Well, hello again, everyone. I hope you're ready for another story. Tonight's stories are Clever Rusty and Susan's Busy Day. David said, "I heard of a horse that can count by stamping his foot." Ruth cried, "I bet our pony Rusty could too." "Maybe we could teach him," David suggested. Rusty was glad to be let out of his shed. He pranced around the yard, snorting and puffing, his breath turning into white steam in the cold air. "He's like a locomotive," David laughed. "Look at his smoke." "Let's be passengers," shouted Ruth, trotting after Rusty. "Look, I'm on the Pullman. I'm getting dressed in one of those little berths." She pretended to pull on her stockings. "Well, I'm having breakfast in the diner," shouted David, close behind her. He scooped up air and chewed it noisily. Both he and Ruth were giggling so hard they didn't notice Rusty suddenly stop, until Ruth stumbled into him and fell flat. David fell over her. "What happened?" David cried. "There goes Rusty into his shed." "He was hungry," cried Ruth, seeing Rusty nose his feed bucket. Sure enough, just then they heard the 5 o'clock whistle from the mill downtown. They always fed Rusty at 5. "Rusty doesn't need counting lessons," David said, and grinned. "He can tell time already." You know, this is a really neat story, because we don't hear so much about locomotives and Pullmans anymore. This was written in a time when the train was the main way that people got from one place to another. And a Pullman was a place where people would have little places to stay during the trip. So they'd have a little bed, they'd have a place to put all their luggage, kind of like a plane, but I don't think I've ever seen a plane that has a bed on it. Well, another really interesting thing about this is definitely that the pony knew when it was time to be fed. He went in right before the 5 o'clock bell. Do your animals ever expect to be fed? Do they know when they're supposed to be fed? Well, I guess we should go on to the next story. Susan's Busy Day. Susan asked Mrs. Carter one afternoon, "Could you stay with Polly while Timmy and I go to the store?" "Oh, yes," Susan said, feeling very grown up. "You won't have any trouble," Mrs. Carter said. "Polly's still napping." Susan settled down to read. The canary sang in the window. Timmy's puppy curled at her feet. "It's easy to take care of a baby," Susan thought proudly. Then suddenly, ruff, ruff, ruff! Past the window went Butch, the collie, chasing one of the Nolan's cats. "Yow!" screamed the cat, making for a tree. "Yow, yow, yow!" yelled Timmy's puppy, charging at the window as though he could go right through it. The glass bounced him back, and wham! He struck the canary's cage and tipped it over. Water and seed spilled over the rug. The canary squeaked wildly. Screamed the puppy in fright. "Wah!" wailed Polly upstairs. Poor Susan! She rushed to pick up the canary's stand to bring Polly downstairs, to carpet sweep the rug, to get Polly her ball, to coax the scared puppy from under the couch, to bring back the ball when Polly threw it, to get the canary fresh water. She had just dropped into a chair when Mrs. Carter returned. Mrs. Carter looked around the neat room where the canary sang, Polly juggled her ball, and the white puppy snoozed. "I knew you wouldn't have any trouble," she said with a smile. "Yes, ma'am," said Susan weakly, and wobbled home wearily. That's another wonderful story. Have you guys ever had to clean up something that wasn't your mess? It can be tough sometimes to do that, but it is definitely the responsible thing to do. Well, I can't wait to read you guys another story. In fact, I have one planned very soon. I guess I will see you again sometime soon. So, good night, Ava. Good night, Gideon. Good night, Elias. Good night, Archer. And good night, Fletcher. I'll see you again very soon.